We are free, we are unlimited, right now, right now.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here and to have you and to hear you. And I am Reverend Sondra von Gyllenband, and I'm so absolutely grateful to be here today and to share with you this talk on deconstruction and reconstruction, building faith in a world of chaos. And boy, have we had some opportunity to experience chaos and the tearing up of the old so we can create something new. Someone said to me the other day, I can't wait till things get back to normal the way they were. And I looked at them and I said, really? I don't think I want to go back to where we were, where people were disrespecting each other and having arguments over this and that. I would like to see us move forward in a way that we actually increase our love for each other, our respect for each other, and allow ourselves to be more tolerant of people who are different. And I believe with faith that we can do that because we are learning a lot during this time, and we do not have to return to what was. We can move forward to what can be. So often when we want something to change, when we want to build something new, we find that we have to, tear up what's been there. We have to tear out some of that. We have to deconstruct what has been. And usually it's a really noisy, dirty, dusty experience, and we don't really enjoy it. Recently, I had to have the foundation to my house leveled. And talk about dusty and dirty and noisy and ugly, and I did not want to have it done. And when they started it, all I wanted them to do was get it finished. It was a horrible experience. And yet, it was required to do that so that I could have a nice, level house. It was something I wanted, and all we could do was move forward to create that level foundation. Our country, right now, is in the middle of a redo. Mm-hmm. We are in the middle of a redo. And so you may have a job, a relationship that's going through a redo. You know, it's loud, it's dusty. It's not where you want it to be. It's not how you want it to be. It may sound like something that you don't actually understand or know. And so minute by minute, things are changing. Maybe somebody knows what's going on, but you don't. So to correct the errors, the illness, the fears, it's time for a redo. To do it right this time, we need to deconstruct. We have seen murders by color. We've seen pandemic denial, pandemic spread. We've seen disrespect after disrespect for people who are different. Different than me, different than you, just different. We've seen this, and we've seen this disrespect. We've seen arguments over wearing masks and not wearing masks. We've been at odds, and the noise has been loud. The noise in our heads has been loud. We've seen it within ourselves, and we've seen it around us. This is a true story, but the names have been changed to protect the innocent. There was a woman who I'll call Norma, whose son Josh was killed by another young man named Jonathan. Jonathan had to commit a murder so that he could be received into a gang. It was part of his initiation. So he went out and he committed this murder, chose somebody randomly, and killed him. So he was in front of the judge for his sentencing, and the judge looked at Norma and said, "Do you want to say something to your son's killer?" And Norma very strongly stood up and she said, "Yes, I do." And she looked Jonathan straight in the eye, and she said, "Jonathan, I'm going to kill you." And she very quietly sat down. She very quietly sat down. So time went on. A few months later, Norma went to visit Jonathan in the detention center that he was in. She took him some money. She took him some baked goods. Took him some change for, cigarettes, that sort of thing. And a couple of months later, she went again. And she continued to go throughout his sentence there, taking him goodies, talking to him, just communing with him. After a few years, he was about to get out, and Norma looked at him and she said, "Jonathan, what are you going to do when you get out?" He said, "I don't know. I hadn't thought about it." She said, "Well, do you want a job?" He said, "Well, a job would be great because, well, I don't know what I'm going to do." She said, "I know a man who runs a factory, and he may be willing to give you a job. I'll talk to him." So she did, and the man was indeed willing to give him a job. She said, "Well, where are you going to live?" He said, "Well, I was living on the streets before I was incarcerated. I don't know." She said, Okay, Jonathan, I'm willing to let you come to my house and live in my house for a short period of time. Just for a short period of time." So, people ask, why would a loving God allow a tragedy like this to happen? And there are no satisfactory answers. There is not an answer that would make me feel all right if I lost my son. So if God is a loving God, then he must not have any power. And if he has power, then he must not be a loving God. In unity, we can be somewhat vulnerable to this type of discussion because we use that statement of faith that there is one power and one presence, God the good, omnipotent. In other words, we proclaim God is loving. And I believe that unity might be much better off than some of the more conservative mainstream Christianity because we have a way to deal with this. You see, we can look at this problem that is called evil in mainstream Christianity and see it a different way. And the reason of this is what we call our third principle. So let's look at the 5 principles that unity uses as guideline for our community. There is one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good. Number 2, our essence is of God. Therefore, we inherit only good. 3, we are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. 4, through prayer and meditation, we align our heart-mind with God. Denials and affirmations are tools that we use. And 5, through thoughts, words, and action, we live truth as we know it. So we have the opportunity to use our third principle. We are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in our minds. Now, does that mean that we create something when it happens? Does that mean that if I get sick, I created that? Or does that mean that I am asking about the physical world of conditions? And while they are real enough, and it's not an illusion, it is not the all. Because you see, we also have the spiritual world. So if we ask God, how can I transform a tragedy, an illness, a situation from this into something good? Then I'm asking about the mental world of experience. about a world in which we can say that we have a part of and that we can co-create with God, that we can respond to world conditions. We can make a difference. We can decide how it's going to be. According to the third principle, our world experience, the kind of response that we have to conditions, whether it be heaven sent or hell bent, is a result of the activity of our thinking, which means in the physical terms that we do not create conditions nor tragedy by the activity of our thinking. What we create is the activity with the activity of our thinking is the quality of response that we make to conditions. It is the quality of our response. We decide how we're going to respond to the circumstances of our life. So, unity teaches from a perspective of one power, one presence, God the good, omnipotent. What this means in practical terms is that we have a choice. No condition, no tragedy, from the common cold to the unspeakable tragedy that is outside the realm of our understanding, outside the realm of God, is to be transformed into a greater good. That is when we align with God and apply our Christ-like mind and our Christ-like nature to that condition. So that is, we apply our thinking. We look for the good. We recognize that regardless of how our heart may feel, how we may want it to be different, we have choice. Mark Hicks of Truth Unity says this: we do not cause all conditions, and we cannot prevent all tragedies, but we have the capacity to respond to imperfect conditions and tragedies in transformative divine ways, ways that transform them into all good. That is our claim. So back to Norma. So after a few months, Jonathan was still there, and he was living there, and he was working, and he was doing everything that was planned. And he'd been there much longer than expected. And he was sitting in the living room, and Norma walked in one night, and she said, "Jonathan, do you remember what I said to you the day that I met you in court?" And he hung his head, and he said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Well, I've killed that young man, and he's dead, and my son is dead, and I have an empty bedroom, and I'd like to know if you want to be adopted and live with me." And so Jonathan received what he wanted all his life, was a mother who would love him and a mother that would accept him. And Norma had a son again, somebody that she could love, someone that she could pour out the love that she had in her heart. And she had killed the young man who had murdered her son. She had killed him with love. So there is no condition, no tragedy that we can't overcome. We don't cause these things, but we have the opportunity to make a decision about how we're going to deal with it. So it's important that we let faith be bigger than fear, to let our faith be larger than our fear. So what this story does is teach faith. It says that all people, regardless of the conditions in their life, whether they're victims of cancer, refugees of war, whether they're a parent of a lost child, whether they're poor, whether they're downtrodden, whether they're just feeling like a loser of everything, it says to them that we are one with God, that we are by nature compassionate and good, and that we are empowered by our unity with God to transform all conditions to a perfect image and likeness that emulates the God mind. So we have the ability with our minds to move into that space if we choose to. So this story was, and the last paragraph was from George Vallant's Spiritual Evolution, a Scientific Defense of Faith. So it may feel like in our society, in our government, that it's been torn apart, that it's been deconstructed. We may feel like there's a lot of ripping and tearing that's going on, and it's loud, and people are asking themselves what to do next. And what to do next is to expand our territory. 1 Corinthians 4:10. Expand our territory, O Lord. Let us understand, be, and experience more than we have. You see, faith is seeing light with our heart when our eyes only see darkness. I'll repeat that. I think it's pretty powerful. It's faith. Faith is seeing light with your heart when your eyes see darkness. It is a way of going past the circumstances and being one with the power of God. It is a way of learning that much of our systemic beliefs are just that. It's something that people have taught us. We've learned about that cultures that are different than ours may not be all right. People with different skin tones than us may not be all right. It's time that we deconstruct those beliefs and learn something different. We can use our principles as a practice, as a daily practice. We can use our principles recognizing that we create our experiences, that we have the ability to move our minds into God mind, into alignment with Christ's mind. You see, faith is believing. You don't have to know that it's going to happen. You don't have to know that it's going to happen. You don't have to know how it's going to happen. But you believe that it will happen. So we have become partners of Christ if only we hold our first confidence firm to the end. So we have the opportunity to expand our territory, to learn anew, to let go of old ideas so that we can reconstruct, we can have a redo, a makeover, and choose what we want today instead of what was given to us in the past. You see, faith is a whole lot like Wi-Fi. It's invisible, but it has the power to connect you with what you need. You have the power to be connected. You have the power to visualize reconstruction. So make plans. Make plans for the journey that you wish to take. For you see, there is only one presence and one power, and that one is God. And so it is. God bless you. Namaste.
Step out on the water, release your faith. Every step is stronger. Step out on the water.